Self-control is the master key to personal power. It is the gatekeeper of every dream, the invisible hand steering you between success and self-destruction. Without it, talent collapses. With it, even the most average individual can achieve extraordinary results. The truth is this: you cannot lead others until you can lead yourself. And self-leadership begins with discipline, emotional, mental, physical. We live in a world that constantly tests our impulses. Temptation isn't rare, it's relentless. We're bombarded by distractions, opinions, pressures, and triggers that challenge our focus, our peace, our character. Self-control is your weapon. It's what allows you to act when others react, to think when others panic, to move with purpose while others flinch in fear. The man or woman who can hold their course while emotions run high, who can remain steady in the face of provocation, who can delay gratification for something greater ahead. That person is unstoppable. Because success is not a single decision, it is a series of decisions made over time under pressure, often when no one's watching. And the only way you consistently make the right ones is by mastering self-control. Let's get one thing straight. Self-control is not about denial. It's not about becoming cold or rigid or suppressing all emotion. It's about becoming selective, choosing your response instead of being dragged by reaction. It's the difference between momentary pleasure and long-term achievement. It's the gap between speaking in anger and responding with power. It's the decision to show up to your goals when your mood would rather sit it out. Your emotions are real, but they are not always right. And they are never supposed to be the captain of your ship. They are messengers, not masters. And self-control allows you to hear those messages without being ruled by them. Now, here's where the real challenge comes in. Self-control doesn't shine when things are easy. It reveals itself when your patience runs thin. When the pressure is high, when someone pushes your buttons, when your ego screams to be right, but your values whisper to stay kind. That's when character is tested. That's when your discipline either steps forward or disappears. And make no mistake, every single time you choose self-control over impulse, you build trust with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. You start proving that your word means something, that your actions are not slaves to your environment, that your future is shaped by intention, not instinct. Most people lose the game not because they lack the skills, but because they lost to their own lack of restraint. They let a bad day sabotage a good plan. They let ego ruin opportunity. They let impulse fracture relationships. They traded what they wanted most for what they wanted right now. Self-control stops that trade from happening. It teaches you the most powerful sentence in the English language. Not now. Not now, when the distraction calls. Not now, when the argument isn't worth your peace. Not now, when the shortcut costs your integrity. Self-control doesn't kill freedom. It creates it. Because when you can rule over yourself, you can rule over your future. The greatest empires, businesses, and personal legacies, they're not built in moments of inspiration. They're built through self-control, brick by brick, decision by decision. We often admire discipline in others, but resist it in ourselves. We admire the athlete who trains before dawn, the writer who rewrites until it's right, the leader who speaks with composure under pressure. But we forget that these are not acts of magic. They are the result of relentless internal governance. You want to achieve greatness? Start with how you carry yourself in private. What you do when no one is clapping. What you choose when no one will know. Because true self-control isn't just public restraint, it's private mastery. Let's talk about attention. Focus is the currency of performance. And self-control is how you invest that currency wisely. We live in the age of noise. 1,000 voices trying to grab your focus. Notifications, opinions, temptation, comparison. It's all designed to pull you off course. Self-control is what allows you to say, I choose what I feed my mind. I choose where I place my focus. I choose what deserves my energy. That single decision made consistently is the difference between a distracted life and a designed one. And let's not forget the war within. Every one of us has two selves inside us. The impulsive self, craving comfort, applause, quick wins, and the intentional self, rooted in purpose, willing to wait, ready to grow. Which one wins? Whichever one you feed. Self-control starves the lesser self, not through punishment, but through conscious redirection. You don't fight distraction with guilt. You fight it with clarity. You don't fight anger with more anger. You pause, breathe, and respond from strength. You don't resist temptation with shame. You replace it with vision. You see, most people think self-control is about resistance, but real self-control is about replacement. You don't just say no to the wrong thing. You say yes to the better thing. You say yes to legacy over impulse. Yes to peace over ego. Yes to progress over comfort. Now let's talk emotion. You cannot control the world, but you can control your response to it. You can choose how long you stay angry, how fast you forgive, whether you escalate or diffuse, whether you react or reflect. The strongest people are not the loudest. They're the ones who choose stillness when chaos is loud. They're the ones who hold their ground without needing to raise their voice. Self-control gives you options. Without it, you are a slave to your first feeling. With it, you're the author of your response. And here's what's most important. When you master self-control, you gain a power that no one can take away. Not your boss, not your critics, not your past, not your circumstances. Because control over self is control over your life. Now, let's turn to something that quietly ruins more potential than failure ever could. Excuses. Excuses are the defense mechanism of an undisciplined mind. They sound intelligent. They sound reasonable. But in truth, they are just well-dressed lies, designed to protect comfort and kill growth. Self-control removes excuses at the root. It doesn't negotiate with your limitations. It challenges them. It exposes the truth, that most of what's holding you back isn't lack of opportunity. It's lack of discipline. You say you don't have time? But how much time do you waste scrolling, second-guessing, procrastinating? You say you're not ready? But readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision to move forward despite fear. You say you're too tired, too stressed, too overwhelmed? But have you ever noticed how energy returns the moment purpose walks in? Excuses are clever. They sound like logic. They pose as caution. But they're built on emotion, fear, doubt, hesitation. And self-control is the force that cuts through the fog. It tells you, I don't care how you feel right now, what matters is what you do next. You won't always feel like showing up. But discipline doesn't ask for your feelings. It asks for your standards. And here's the irony. The more you act with self-control, the better you feel. Because nothing destroys self-respect like quitting on yourself. And nothing builds confidence like keeping promises to your own future. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to operate from conviction instead of mood. You become a person who does what's necessary, especially when it's not easy. And that's rare. Because the world is full of people who wait for the right time, the right energy, the right motivation. But you're not waiting. You're building. You're not reacting. You're responding. And that response, that decision to rise above distraction, doubt, and delay, that is where freedom lives. Let's make something clear. Self-control isn't about becoming robotic. It's not about suppressing joy or becoming some cold, calculated machine. No. It's about directing your energy. It's about choosing joy over indulgence, choosing action over anxiety, choosing creation over consumption. When you live with self-control, you don't live with less emotion. You live with more power over where your emotions take you. You use them. You channel them. You don't let them run wild and wreck your future. And there's one more thing. Self-control is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the choice to say nothing when pride wants to speak. The choice to walk away instead of proving a point. The choice to stay the course when every part of you wants to give in. That quiet choice? It's the beginning of greatness. There's a hidden reward inside self-control that most people never discover. Peace. Not the kind you chase in silence or search for in exotic places, but the kind that lives in you when your actions match your values. When you don't have to apologize for your decisions. When you don't carry regret like a shadow. When your life feels aligned. You see, peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from knowing you didn't betray yourself in the moment. You didn't lash out when you could have. You didn't give in when temptation knocked. You didn't bend your standards just to satisfy your emotions. Self-control is how you sleep at night with your head high. It's how you walk through the world with quiet confidence. Because you know you're in charge of you. It's not about perfection. It's about responsibility. There's power in knowing that your mood doesn't decide your legacy. Your past doesn't dictate your actions. Your impulses don't run your day. You run your day. Now let's bring this to the real world relationships. So many breakdowns happen not from a lack of love, but from a lack of self-control. Words said in anger, assumptions made in pride, decisions made in fear. But the person with self-control can pause. They don't just react, they consider. They don't need to win every argument. They don't confuse silence with weakness. They know when to speak and when to let stillness speak louder. They choose the long-term health of the connection over the short-term satisfaction of being right. And that's not weakness. That's leadership. You want to influence people? Master yourself first. You want your voice to matter? Train yourself to speak from clarity, not chaos. You want respect from others? Then start by respecting your own standards. Self-control isn't just something you practice for yourself. It's something people feel around you. It creates emotional safety. It creates trust. It creates stability in an unstable world. Because when you are solid, others can lean on you. And when others can lean on you, you become a leader, whether you carry the title or not. So, if you want to elevate your life, don't just chase goals. Chase mastery of self. Because the moment you take full ownership of your actions, your habits, and your emotions, you step into a rare kind of power. Unshakable, intentional, respected, free. Now let's talk about habits. Because self-control is never just about the big decisions. It lives in the small ones. It's not only about staying calm during a crisis. It's about choosing what you do every morning when there isn't a crisis. It's about the routines you build when no one's watching. The food you eat, the content you consume, the people you surround yourself with, the voice you listen to your own. Most people want a different life, but they don't want to change their daily patterns. They chase big dreams, but ignore the small disciplines that make them real. You don't need more motivation. You need better standards. Because when your habits are built with intention, you don't have to rely on willpower. You've already created the environment where the right choices become natural. That's what self-control really is. Not a constant inner war, but a system that sets you up to win. You don't fight the same temptations every day. If you've designed your life to make success easier and failure harder. Want to stop procrastinating? Set a specific schedule. Want to control spending? Create automatic rules for your money. Want to avoid distraction? Eliminate the triggers before they pull you off track. Self-control is less about fighting impulses and more about not giving them a seat at your table in the first place. Because you're not weak. You're just human. And humans are shaped by what they repeat. Discipline isn't a personality trait. It's a pattern. And that pattern can be trained. You become what you practice. You become what you tolerate. You become what you repeatedly do, especially when no one else sees it. This is where integrity is born. Because integrity is not about looking strong in public. It's about staying strong in private. It's making the call when it's uncomfortable. Finishing the task when no one will check. Saying no when yes would be easier. Each of these moments feels small in isolation. But together, they form the backbone of your identity. And eventually, they shape your reality. You want a life that's strong, focused, respected, fulfilled? Then build the kind of habits that demand that life to meet you. Not someday, but now. One controlled moment at a time. There's something you need to know about strength. It's not always about how much you can lift. It's about how much you can hold without losing yourself. Can you hold tension without snapping? Can you hold desire without giving in? Can you hold a vision in your mind long enough for it to become real? That's the strength self-control gives you. Most people collapse under emotional weight. They lash out when they feel disrespected. They run when things get uncomfortable. They numb themselves when clarity is too sharp. But not you. Because you understand something most people don't. Discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your training ground. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, you get stronger. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, you harden your character. And every time you say no to the lesser version of you, you say yes to your higher self. This is the battlefield no one sees. No crowds. No medals. Just quiet choices that echo into your future. And let's be honest. This isn't about becoming some untouchable machine. It's about becoming emotionally sovereign. It means you're no longer held hostage by your circumstances. Your peace is not rented out to other people's behavior. Your values are not compromised by temporary pressure. That's power. And that kind of power can't be faked. It's earned internally. You start becoming a different kind of person. One who doesn't need external validation to feel worthy. One who doesn't panic under pressure. One who can delay the reward, endure the silence, and still move forward. Because your drive isn't coming from ego anymore. It's coming from vision, from mission, from alignment. Self-control isn't about perfection. You will slip. You will make mistakes. You will lose your balance some days. But here's the key. You come back faster. You notice sooner. You reset quicker. And each time you do, your baseline strength increases. That's the real win. You're not trying to eliminate failure. You're eliminating the delay between failure and recovery. And over time, that changes everything. Because a person who can return to their principles, even after being knocked down, is a person who becomes unshakable. Let's talk about decisions. Because every major shift in your life comes down to a single quiet decision made in a moment of clarity or chaos. And self-control? It's the muscle that helps you choose clarity over chaos. Most people don't make poor choices because they're foolish. They make them because they're emotional. They react in anger. They buy in fear. They quit in doubt. They speak from ego. But you, when you have self-control, you build space between stimulus and response. You give yourself the gift of pause. And in that pause, you reclaim your power. Because real power doesn't look like domination. It looks like restraint. The power to walk away from the argument. To say no to a shiny distraction. To protect your energy instead of proving your point. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it changes everything. And people feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they sense it. They sense the difference between someone who's impulsive and someone who is anchored. Self-control earns you something rare in today's world. Respect. Not the kind you demand. The kind you command by how you carry yourself. Because when others see that you don't flinch under pressure, that you don't leak energy through drama or ego, that you don't betray your standards for applause, they trust you more. They follow you more. Because you've proven you can lead yourself. And here's something most people never realize. Self-control is a silent resume. It tells the world, this person can be trusted. This person thinks long-term. This person has mastered the most unruly territory of all themselves. That kind of control can't be outsourced. It can't be borrowed. It can't be copied. It has to be earned. Earned in the early mornings when no one sees you training. Earned in the hard conversations you don't avoid. Earned in the quiet choices to stay aligned when chaos calls you off course. And over time, that discipline becomes identity. That identity becomes influence. And that influence becomes your legacy. Let's go deeper, because self-control doesn't just affect what you do. It shapes who you become. Every time you exercise restraint, you're voting for the kind of person you're becoming. You're saying, I am someone who values growth over comfort, discipline over drama, legacy over impulse. And those votes compound. They may not pay off today. They may not show tomorrow. But in time, they build something permanent, identity. And identity is stronger than willpower. Willpower fades. It gets tired. But when self-control becomes part of who you are, you don't force good decisions. You default to them. This is where the game changes. When doing the right thing is no longer a battle, but a reflex, a standard, a way of life. Think of the most grounded, respected, high-integrity people you know. They all have one thing in common. They don't chase impulses. They direct them. They don't just react to life. They create life. And this is not about suppressing who you are. It's about elevating who you are. It's not about being rigid. It's about being rooted. Because when you are rooted in purpose, you don't sway with every emotion, every trend, every opinion. You move with intention. You choose your battles. You manage your reactions. You protect your peace like a sacred asset because it is. There's nothing passive about self-control. It's one of the most active forms of power you'll ever experience. It requires awareness. It requires repetition. It requires vision. Because anyone can get loud. Anyone can take shortcuts. Anyone can quit. But few choose the long road, the clear head, the quiet strength. And that's exactly why it's so rare and so valuable. Self-control gives you something the world desperately needs. Stability. In your leadership, in your relationships, in your mission. And Stability doesn't mean life never shakes you. It means life doesn't break you because you've anchored yourself, not in emotion, but in values, not in approval, but in discipline, not in impulse, but in principle. That's how strong lives are built, not through force, but through foundation. Here's something few understand. Self-control is not about restriction. It's about liberation. It's not a prison. It's a passport. It gives you the power to choose your response, your direction, your destiny, without being hijacked by emotion, ego, or external noise. Most people think freedom means doing whatever they want, whenever they want. But real freedom, the kind that builds peace, trust, and power, comes from discipline. Because when you can say no to what doesn't serve you, you open space to say yes to what does. You stop being pulled by every craving, and you start living from core values. You stop needing external control because you've developed internal strength. And that internal strength doesn't just change you, it affects everyone around you. When you operate with self-control, you become the thermostat in the room, not the thermometer. You set the tone. You stabilize the space. You lead with calm, not chaos. People feel safer around you. They respect your presence. They trust your judgment because self-control is magnetic. In a world full of noise, the one who carries composure commands attention. And here's the unexpected gift. Self-control deepens self-respect. You feel proud of how you handled that situation. You feel stronger for walking away instead of exploding. You feel wiser for pausing instead of reacting. You feel aligned because you didn't betray who you are. That pride, it's fuel. It multiplies your confidence. It sharpens your focus. It reinforces your identity as someone who can be counted on by others and by yourself. Because let's be honest, the most damaging betrayal isn't when others let you down. It's when you let yourself down. When you knew better, but didn't choose better. And self-control protects you from that regret. It keeps you aligned, on track, anchored. It allows you to look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of how I showed up. And in a world where chaos is common and excuses are cheap, that kind of self-respect, that's priceless. There will be days when you feel tired, not just physically, but emotionally. When the weight of doing the right thing feels heavier than usual. When compromise whispers louder than conviction. When shortcuts look tempting and nobody would even notice. Those are the moments that define you. Not the easy wins, not the applause-filled days, but the quiet, difficult hours where no one's watching except you. And in those moments, you will have a choice. To act from emotion or to act from vision. To serve the moment or to serve the mission. To surrender to impulse or to rise in discipline. Because here's the truth. Everything you want, peace, freedom, respect, success, is found on the other side of consistency. And consistency is only possible with self-control. You don't have to feel powerful to act powerfully. You just have to decide. And decide again. And again. You will never control every situation. You will never silence every critic. You will never eliminate every distraction. But you can master you. Your breath. Your tone. Your choices. Your habits. That's not small. That's everything. Because when the world gets noisy, your calm becomes your signal. When things feel uncertain, your discipline becomes your stability. When others panic, your presence becomes leadership. You won't always be the most talented, or the most resourced, or the most celebrated. But you can be the most grounded, the most consistent, the most committed to principle. And in the long run, that wins. Not because it's flashy, not because it's easy, but because it's rare. And rare always rises. So keep showing up with strength. Keep honoring your values when no one's clapping. Keep choosing what serves you over what seduces you. You are not here to be ruled by mood. You are here to rule by mastery. And mastery begins with self-control.